Right. Great. I'll get started. Yeah. So thanks for joining today. I'm excited to talk to you about bootstrapping and to share with you the story of how we started Fluxon without ever raising any venture capital or angel investment. In the press, you often hear that startups are raising millions of dollars, and raising millions of dollars can definitely give you a lot of advantages. But at the same time, one need to remember that raising capital isn't an accomplishment by itself, but it's really an obligation. And there are different ways to start a business, and that's what we're excited to share. Again, I'm Irad Friedman, and I'm here with AJ on the call, and together with Ina and Jen, we're the co-founders of Fluxon. I'll tell you a little bit about us. Like Fluxon is a global product dev company. We build software for startups and also enterprise companies. Sometimes from scratch, we build whole companies, and other times, we join existing teams. We founded it about 5 years ago, and now we're over 150 employees. We have 3 of our own products, soon to be 4, and we're self-funded, and been lucky to work with a lot of great people in the Xoogler network. So I listed a few of them here, but those are examples of companies founded by ex-Googlers that our company is working with. On the larger companies, we also are kind of lucky to work with Zapier and Stripe and Google and a few other kind of larger enterprise companies. So we started Fluxon about 5 years ago, actually alongside another company that was called Indigo Bank. The idea was that Indigo Bank was a banking application for kids, and Fluxon was really the side project essentially to support the building of Indigo Bank. We lost the window. We were basically using sweat equity, like our own work, to fund it. So we had to give ourselves a very strict timeline. We were fortunate to have worked in Google earlier and had some savings, but we also, like many of you, live in the Bay Area, so it was definitely can get expensive. We had like limited time to know is it working or not. So we really gave ourselves 6 to 12 months to see whether we wanted to launch a bank, to launch a credit card, a debit card, and then to see if we have product market fit. It was definitely not a smooth line, from back then to where we are today. So while in 2018 we did launch a debit card, we had we had a hard time like finding product market fit with the product. It wasn't a fit for our skills. So one of the hardest things we had to do early on is actually decide that Indigo is not working or not working for us, and closing that. After investing so much time in it, it's kind of tough if any one of you did it before. So in 2019, we decided to close Indigo. But what was interesting during the time is that Fluxon, that was built really to support Indigo, was growing on its own, generating revenue and getting a lot of demand. So in retrospect, it's easy to see, but back then it was interesting that it wasn't obvious at the time, but like we really wanted to invest more time in Fluxon and see where that can go. As we close Indigo, like a lot of our efforts went to Fluxon, and really starting a lot of those projects that were basically waiting for us to take on. We had one of kind of the high moments in 2019 was the first paycheck, and while it was very small compared to the Google paychecks, it felt very, very rewarding. A lot of it has to do with, I think, when you work at Google, you kind of know where your career is heading, and you can see the trajectory, and you can kind of guess like how much money you'll be making in 2 years and in 4 years. And this paycheck felt, however small, it was unbounded. Like there was no roof to where we can go from here. I'll list a few others of the ups and downs, So when COVID hit, or our first mini recession, that was kind of scary, especially this was our own money, as I mentioned. So going through that, but that was quickly followed by essentially unprecedented demand for tech teams and really strong product team. So the growth after that was actually really fast. In 2022, a lot of our team, like about half our team, is in Ukraine, and during the Ukraine war was kind of scary, tough time. We shifted a lot of our focus. Everybody shifted their focus to like making sure people are okay and safe, helping people find new places to live and figure out the situation. So I've been really proud of how the team has been helping each other during the time, and how we all came together. It really felt special and kind of stressed the fact that like choosing who you're taking this journey with, and both in terms of your co-founders but also in terms of your team, is just critical. And yeah, and even though the market has been kind of volatile lately, and you probably experienced that, we are finding our groove in a way. Like we have been continuing growing throughout this time, so we're cautiously optimistic, and confident that things are going well. I'll take a pause here to see if I miss any kind of interesting stories from that timeline, AJ.
I was just looking at that picture. We got some desks from I forget where. Ina got them somehow.
Yeah.
It was fun to, I don't know, just be putting a desk down, have somewhere to sit with friends. I remember, a lot of, especially in those early days, just not knowing exactly what was going to happen, but having sort of an intention for where we wanted to be. We talked about, well, one day we're going to earn a paycheck, and we weren't sure how far away that would be. So when we finally got the paycheck, we were kind of looking at it like, oh yeah, cool, good. It was exciting. It felt like even though it wasn't a big paycheck, it wasn't a Google paycheck. It felt like a paycheck we worked hard to get. I was really proud of it. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I still have it here, AJ. By the way, kept it in a little box.
Yeah. One of the things we didn't talk too much about was we did actually try to do some fundraising on Indigo. We spent a lot of time talking to investors, and we went through the Y Combinator application process, and even had an interview, and a lot of effort there to try to understand what we could do to make that concept viable. And the hard part was we loved the concept, but we couldn't see a way to make it viable as a business. There was no way to force it. So,
yeah. So throughout this journey, I mentioned some of the lessons we learned, but in general, if you talk about bootstrapping, bootstrapping is a little bit of a game of how far can you go without running out of money? I think it's actually important that all companies engage in it with not running out of money, but for bootstrapping, it's just critical. And what it means basically is that you have to be really focused on your goals. You're taking all the financial risk yourself, so you need to know soon whether it works or not. And because you don't have this essentially external factors like external board or VC giving you milestones, you really have to set the goals for yourselves and the guardrails to know where you stand. As many of you probably have tried startups before, you know that your idea may not work from the get-go. So just being able to admit what works and what doesn't, I think is really important. And then the last but not least is the importance of choosing the right co-founders. Talk to a few, Sambuddha and I talked about it a lot earlier as well. But the spending time to find the right people that you trust and can take this journey with is really important. It's also important you have the same expectations and level of commitment from each other. So for us, we were all in. We didn't have anything else going on. It was all about that. So we had to make it work together or stop. So I do think that kind of commitment is also important on all sides.
Yeah, I feel lucky. I never had a doubt about my co-founders' intentions, or I just know everyone is always in good faith. We have our best interests at heart, So whatever happens, we can deal with it.
Yeah. And I guess I haven't mentioned the intro, but we're all, best friends. We, AJ and I and Jen all worked at Google, like worked together and know each other for a while. So it was all felt very organic and very natural. Some of the benefits of bootstrapping, which you might have guessed, like freedom and flexibility, are the really big ones. You have the autonomy. You're making your own decisions. In our case, we are the executive team. We're the investors. We're the board. So really being able to make your own path, and then to me, very important is being able to choose the team and the people you work with. This have proven time and again how important it is for the success of the business. You also get to start, when you bootstrap a business, you get to start immediately. So a big part of, fundraising for most people, it's like a job. You actually need to work on it. There's of course exceptions and stories about raising a lot of money in 2 weeks or something, but for most people, like, you need to invest a lot of time in it. And this time you invest in fundraising is time you're not investing in your product and building your actual company. So a big benefit of bootstrapping is able to start immediately. And then there's no choice but to focus and to go fast, because you really need this validation, whether your idea is viable, is it working or not. So that's another, it's a risk, but also a great benefit of bootstrapping. And finally, it has been our experience that growing, this like slow burn kind of growing, like the organic growth, is a lot more stable. There's obviously, it's very exciting to be, where a lot of money comes in and things go really fast, but then the down markets are also affecting a lot more the really high leverage companies. So for us, being able to grow in a pace that's more organic really provided a sense of stability through those ups and downs of market, ups and downs of your product and things like that. So that has been a great benefit as well. AJ, anything you'd like to add? Or
I guess for me, something that was important to me personally was having some sovereignty as far as what I'm working on and who I'm working with. And I think that's really the main reason for us. We thought about raising money. We talked to investors. We were even like almost to the point of closing some investment. And we decided at the end of the day that we'd actually just rather not. We were looking at what was the trade-off for us, and for us it didn't make sense. Maybe there's still maybe someday in the future we'll have some opportunity where it does make sense. Not like ruling it out, but at least for this time around, it wasn't what we wanted to do.
Yeah. And if you're thinking of bootstrapping yourself, I think that it's really important to think through those questions that I have here. Is like, is bootstrapping right for your business and for you? So for your business, meaning we're fortunate to be in a business where this is possible, but there are a lot of businesses where this like capital is really necessary to get off the ground. So you have to think through that part of your business. Also, there are situations where blitzing the market and getting a lot of capital to grow really fast is also a huge advantage. So that's another thing to consider. And then the last consideration I would say is really a personal one. I feel like we're very fortunate to be in a position, where we're able to do that for at least for a short while. And I think that's, that doesn't hold true for every person or every situation. So just knowing what can you invest in terms of your time, in terms of your own money, is really important. And then because you're taking the financial risk and your own time risk, it's really important to set goals early on and evaluate, is this path working for you or not? And
I agreed with my wife that I had a year basically after leaving Google to find out if that was a good choice or not. So, the first month or two, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And then once I started getting a little traction, and I realized Arad and I and Ina could work together. Even after the end of that year, it wasn't like I had achieved something other than confidence that this was like working well enough that I should continue to do it. So that having that kind of milestone in place, if I hadn't had started, hadn't met up with Arad, Ina, and Jen in that year, I probably would have just gone back to a job. But I did have that timeline in place. So
yeah. And the last thing I wanted to share actually links to what AJ you said earlier, which is bootstrapping is a great way to start your business, even if you do decide to raise external capital. We did have, to AJ's point, investors come to us after and actually quite interested in the business. So I would say that bootstrapping allows you to raise more capital at higher valuation, right? But to me, the most important piece is that you are investing your time, kind of like your blood, sweat, and tears, and you really want to know that this is the business you want to be in for a long time. So if nothing else, you need to answer for yourself, is this the right investment for you? And really, bootstrapping forces you to make this decision within a specified time. And I view this really important. And with that, we can, unless you have more thoughts, AJ, we can open it up for questions. I saw a few in Dory. And
we have some questions. We can probably just go to there. Do you want to pull it up or?
Sure. So, let me present the question Q&A. 1 second. All right. So the first, can you guys see? Yeah.
Yep.
So the first question from Brendan, thank you for that. It's how is Fluxon associated with Indigo? So we did open Indigo as a separate entity. We actually opened 2 separate companies because for Fluxon, we were not looking for investment. For Indigo, we did. And but in a way, Fluxon was all our income at the time. So it supported us as individuals to allow us to accept a salary of 0 for a long time to work on Indigo. Does that answer your question, Brendan?
Yeah, thanks.
Right. Lavender Hedge, what is your tech stack? Why did you choose those particular technologies? So AJ, you want to take that?
Sure. It varies a bit on the projects. So we've experienced a lot of different things. If we're building for web, typically we're using React with Next.js. React is comfortable for us to program in. Lots of people know it. It's easy enough to use. Good library support, good community support. We've also used Angular and Vue in other projects. If there's a preference for that, maybe on the client side. Mobile development, we've done React Native. We've also done some native development. Again, React Native is comfortable. Lots of people know it. Good developer community. But it really varies a lot based on what exactly the nature of the problem is. Try to be pragmatic and choose the tools that are relevant for the particular problem domain.
Thanks. And then how did we decide who to bring to the team without funding in the beginning? So it's an interesting question because we actually, I think when you are self-funded and when you start the business like that, you kind of have to start by working with your friends often. You need people who who are willing to take a lot of risk for working with you and believe in what you're doing and believe in the future, what you're building. So for me, I often say, like, I started Fluxon as an opportunity to work with my friends, like my friends from Google. And so the first people we worked with were actually other ex-Googlers who are willing to take some risk and work with us. Our founding engineer in India, Praveen, was also working in Google, and fortunate enough to convince him to join us very early on. It's been like instrumental for building the company. We now have, he's now actually the chairman of the board of the India company. So,
and we didn't hire aggressively initially. A lot of the work initially we did ourselves. I was one of the main engineers on first projects we did. As we grew, we were able to grow our team out of the revenues that we were earning through our own efforts. And so the team just grew organically. We knew when it was time to hire someone because we had more than we could do by ourselves in the time we had. And so we had to grow our team just in order to kind of serve the projects we were signing. As far as who to bring on the team, I think that's always a challenge as well, because especially when you haven't done a lot of hiring before. I mean, I experience interviewing, but the experience of interviewing, hiring a person, seeing them on the team and the work that they're doing, and coaching them and taking them through the whole sort of journey of a member of our team was new for us. So we did our best to pick people that we felt like would work out, and sometimes more successful than others, but you kind of keep going.
Yeah. The next one from Mukil is, what metrics did we use when we got started? And it is true, our paycheck took a longer while than we intended to, but a lot of our metrics for Indigo, the metrics were, we had product level metrics, like we wanted to be at a certain point with a debit card out by a specific date and things like that related to the bank. We also had goals around customer acquisition, like number of kind of users we're able to bring on, and then because it was a consumer play, around the cost per acquisition. So those were a lot of the goals for Indigo Bank that actually helped us make the decision of not to proceed. For Fluxon, I would say it was making good money, actually even earlier on, but we were not distributing it to ourselves in a way. So you're right, the first paycheck took some time, but it was also came with a lot of confidence that we would be able to pay this first paycheck because the money was coming in. The company had revenue and the company was profitable. So I hope that answered your question, but let me know if not.
I mean, a way of like clarifying that. So like the Fluxon as an organization was making revenue in the first month of its inception. It was a little bit of revenue, not enough to pay a Bay Area tech salary, but at least enough to give us confidence that this is a thing that's working. And as we grew the scale of that, eventually we were able to start to pay ourselves some salary. But it wasn't initial right away for sure. But we could see that was happening over a period of a year and a half, 2 years.
Go ahead, Mukil. I think you're.
No, I was just going to say that, no, this helps a lot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. This one. Do we have advice for founders who have full-time jobs with team members with various commitment level? So that's a hard one. I can tell you my experience because I started a business where we were not as committed and we were actually working full-time in various companies, working on the weekend. And that was actually very tough. Like, I think if there's, first of all, like you're not, it's a good way to bootstrap. But for example, if we're looking to like potentially raise money, for example, VCs would kind of look down on that if you don't invest your own time, how they trust you to start it, as an example. And you should think about it for yourself. Like if you want to give it really a chance, you kind of have to make the time for it one way or another, whether it's through like savings or something else, but you have to make the time for trying it out. So that has been my journey. I do know that there are companies who started as weekend projects and things like that. So I wouldn't say it's not possible, but it's just tougher. And about the various level of commitment, I think that's actually a lot tougher because there's this instinct of fairness that kicks in. And we have seen companies that we worked with before where the whole company broke because or ceased to exist because there were various levels of commitment. So in one example, it was a big founding team. There were 5 people, and one of them just stopped working. And without their ability for this person to be kind of have the tough conversation or kicked out, having 4 people carrying another person, it basically broke the company, because nobody was willing to, why am I working so hard and just benefiting this one guy? And so the whole thing actually stopped. So I would say definitely look out for that. You want this element of fairness.
Yep, it's the number one thing that I've seen that disrupts early stage companies is distrust or disagreement amongst the kind of founding team. So it's one of the reasons I just feel lucky that I got to have a good partners that I never have to doubt. And we've all been really committed. I see how like various levels of commitment generate resentment, and it's not healthy.
Did we raise money from friends and family for the bootstrapping for Fluxon? We did not. We used our own money. As a service business, we didn't need a lot to get started. It was pretty light. Like, we needed a G Suite account and Sentry and Ping, like a few SaaS services. So we were able to start actually with our own money. We did put some money, but it was very little. Yeah. And how did you decide what type of problems you wanted to work on? We actually made a list when we first started of product ideas. I still have this list, but it was like around maybe 50 different ideas of products we wanted to build or try. And we spent a lot of time thinking, what parts are we passionate about? What parts are we interested in? And what do we think has a good chance of success? We did not feel like we have any crystal ball to say, that's part of the bootstrapping, that we did not feel like we had this insight to say, hey, this idea is certainly going to work. I'm going to put my entire life now behind this one idea. And this is why we wanted to be able to self-fund it in a way and be able to get a quick answer was the main thing we were looking for.
I've been an engineer my life, so my attitude has always been about how I can understand a problem other people have and solve that problem. And I've always been more motivated to solve problems that are like affecting more than just me. I've never been very motivated to solve problems that only affect me. Looking for opportunities where there is a problem people in your life have that you can somehow address is it's how I get a return on my time investment of doing engineering, is that somebody else got to see it, use it. So I always start with that, like problems I see with in the business or in life that other people are experiencing. Even sometimes little problems can turn into something bigger if you dig in and actually just put something out there that addresses it.
Yeah. I love this next question. Like, which Google lessons did you have to unlearn? It's a great question, and I think a lot. But the two that jumps to mind for me, one has to do with the scale. I think at Google, everything we've done, we had to think, okay, but how does that scale to 1 billion people, or how does it make $1 billion in revenue? And I think when for any startup at a scale, like you kind of have to forget about that. The importance of moving fast and validating your idea, basically launching something and seeing how well it works, is much more important. Like if you don't have a good answer whether you're solving a real pain point and people are drawn to it, building a scale for 1 billion people is just not relevant. And we've definitely seen some folks make this coming out of Google, like thinking about the scale a little too early. For me, the second one has to do with a little bit of the speed, the pace. And I would say that, when I first started Google, like, it was a lot smaller companies and it moved a certain, like, it had certain velocity to it. As the company grow, at least in the area I was in, it felt a little slower. And kind of going back to remembering the days where, hey, you can build a whole product in like 4 weeks, or you can launch something in like 2-3 weeks and get some answers. Getting those ideas back into my mind definitely took a while. Coming back from a place where you have to work on quarterly goals and quarterly features sometimes longer periods. AJ, are there additional ones for you?
I was going to say on the engineering side, like when you walk out the door for the first time and you start to try to do something not inside Google after being there for I was there for 7 years. I realized that I didn't know anything about how to do engineering work outside of Google, and all these choices that had been made for me at Google, I now needed to make myself, and everything like what source code editor should I be using? What release process system should I use? What programming language should I use? Should I use React or Angular? Like all these things you have to go and figure out again from scratch. So it was pretty overwhelming. If I think about a lesson from the engineering side, I think there are so many resources internally at Google that they can afford to kind of, the tiniest of problems can be solved with huge systems. And outside of Google, you kind of have to be a little more thrifty, maybe. So, nobody at Google ever asked me, hey, why is this Borg job running for a year and hasn't received any traffic? But in the startup world, hopefully you have a CFO that says, hey, there's a VM that is over here that we forgot about. Can we turn that off? So just being mindful of some of your costs, I would say, is maybe the first thing that I had to unlearn.
The next one is asking about the first paying customer. So for us, maybe it's worth mentioning, we don't have a sales team at Fluxon. So we've been growing. A lot of it has been through our network and through word of mouth. Some of the best deals that came to us were actually through other customers where we've done a good job and referred us. So the first one was no exception. Like we basically got it through Ina's network. She knew of a founder who had a good business idea, and he was very much like a business person, salesperson, had customers, had deals, and the tech team was just not catching up. And she connected it to Fluxon, and of course we're coming for AJ and me, and Jen, we're coming from product and engineering background, both at Google and before. So we're like, that's great. Like, I mean, we got the tech side down. If this person can solve it on the business side, like we're good, and that's really how it played out. I think the next one is kind of talked about a little bit about what metrics you use in the beginning. I would say that there was definitely a lot of focus on revenue early on, understanding, figuring out revenue. On Indigo Bank, we had to think of customer acquisition a little bit and costs around that. But on the Fluxon side, it was all about that because we needed this growth to be able to basically continue. This is a story about bootstrapping is you need to not run out of money, and you're spending money at a certain pace and you need the revenue to exceed that. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. On the Fluxon side, it's like a small number of users really that we're thinking about, and definitely the revenue was more important for us. We were looking at like how to continue to live our lifestyle, just pay the rent. So revenue was important.
Yeah. The next one from team. Hi team. So what are the pros and cons of doing consulting, contract work versus bootstrapping, building your own company? So I think bootstrapping your company doesn't have to be done through consulting. Like this was just our path. There are other ways to kind of fund it with your own money, with friends and family, as was mentioned before, with credit cards. Is a story that I've seen a lot. For us, the things that got us really excited is building products. So it was very natural. We were building Indigo Bank, and the parts that we loved was building, launching the product. So doing it with other companies did not feel like a distraction. It felt like very natural. At the same time, I understand if time you spend with these other companies does prevent you from working on your own product. We had to build to a certain size of Fluxon before we were able to incubate our own products. Dory that we're using right now is one of them. We have a few more. So definitely, like it did take us some time before we were able to work on our own company with this method. That has to do with the slow burn I mentioned. Does that answer your question, Tim?
Yep, it does. Thank you.
Thanks. Raising capital for the purpose of breaking to wider network. Do you mean by that, Caleb, like as a way, getting your investors as a way for getting also customers for your product? Is that what you mean?
Hey there. Yeah, that's what I mean. So I feel like, one of the benefits of raising capital is, it gives you a wider reach. Maybe like you get more credibility, but people know about you a lot more, right?
Yeah.
So I was wondering, like, did you already have a robust reach, just because of all the work you've done previously?
So we did not necessarily. And actually, when we were, and as I mentioned, we don't have any sales team, and we only started marketing recently, and we have maybe 50% of a person working on it. It is definitely easier to get into the press and all these elements with the traditional route, raising money, knowing the valuations and these kind of stories. Those make it more easily into the press, if that's kind of one thing to get awareness. And I also have seen people that raise very small amount of money from a lot of people as a way to enter, to start building their customer base. So one of the companies we work with, they actually raised very small checks, like many small checks of $10,000. And their goal was not for them getting for the money, but rather getting more people to try and use their product in a way. So it's definitely a technique one can use to get to a wider network. We just did not use that. We used our own network for getting customers. So
we've been intentional about building a network over a couple of decades, so that definitely helps.
Yeah, I think if you're here, you're actually part of a very big network. It's like the Xoogler network, right? So you have access to all these kind of people, individuals you can reach out with quick DMs over Slack. So you have, all of us have been fortunate to have this network, right? So I'd say definitely, like, this is a huge advantage. So you should use it.
Great, thank you.
Maybe also worth saying, like we did some sort of direct marketing effort at one point. We did experiment with it, and it ends up being like cold calling, and that conversion rate on that was not super great, right? So if we had raised money, we would need to spend it on some sort of marketing or sales efforts. But we were having success with other alternatives, so we didn't really think about it too much.
Yeah.
So,
the next one about how did you attract people to join when we didn't have a lot of money. So we that definitely was a very much challenge at the beginning. I remember specifically, so we had to work with people who are willing to either be kind of paid very little like us, or deferred payments or something like that. And I remember having this discussion early on about, we were thinking, hey, we would never be able to work with other Googlers necessarily, because Googlers tend to have very high salaries. So it's very hard to kind of attract these talent. So I think for me, one big milestone was when we were able to start actually hiring people from Google and convince them to join us. That felt very special. But that only happened after we were a certain size. We now have about 12 ex-Googlers on the team.
and I think what we're trying to do to convince people to join us is like providing some interesting work to do, providing a good environment to be in. Obviously, like competitive compensation and everything, but actually that's not the most important part. I think the most important part is having a team that people actually want to be a part of, having a culture in a team where you can work together effectively and solve real problems is what gets people excited. So
One more question from Caleb.
I can take this one.
Go ahead.
So the question is about the variation in solutions and how much is reusable and what do we have to build from scratch. So one of the reasons why we develop our own products is because we wanted to have some patterns available internally that we could use when we're starting up a new client project. We're always doing custom development work for our clients who are usually it's something that's very specific to their problem and their domain. Useful still to have patterns that you can rely on internally to help you go faster. So examples like around release process, how to structure a project plan or design document. We definitely have all those kinds of resources internally, but we're not really developing too many general purpose components that then we're using across many products. It's more about process and pattern.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Maybe worth mentioning, we did, I mean, to some degree, that's one of the reasons we built Dory was we had a lot of projects and all of them were using very similar stack of like React and GraphQL, Apollo, and stuff like that. And we wanted to be able to reuse some of those infrastructure when we start a new project. It's really every project starts kind of similar, and this saves a lot of time in the beginning. And because we build custom solutions for companies, we could not be using like other companies' infrastructure to bootstrap another one.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why we build our own as well, so we can more easily copy. We can copy our own product, and there's no problem with that to a customer solution.
At least the parts that are pure boilerplate, like the bootstrapping your node server, deployment to production, all these things.
Yeah, so that has been helpful. The last one, how did you do user research or get feedback in the beginning? So is that I guess if you want to not remain anonymous, is the question about Indigo Bank or about Fluxon? Maybe you can clarify.
At least for Fluxon, we had a lot of indicators early on that people were interested in our service. Like people just reach out to us and ask if we could help on something. So we had a lot of indicators that this was something people wanted. And as soon as we're doing a project, we're getting feedback from our customer right away as to, are they happy or not happy with the progress, and what do they want to change, and where do they want to see the product going. So we're always getting that feedback. And I think one of the things that's been really important for us is like being really transparent about what we're doing and who's doing what. So we're always meeting together with our clients, the whole team, and we want to work as partners. So we are asking actively for that feedback. And when we notice an issue, we're the one bringing it up. Hey, there's a problem that we need to resolve. So I think just actively and being mindful about it has been our strategy.
Right, that was a lot of questions. Thank you so much, guys. Do you go ahead, Sabuda?
Yeah, I had one more question. Thanks for going over all of this. I guess AJ mentioned he was at Google for 7 years. I guess the rest of your team was also in Google for a long time. And I think in Google, you have a very less stress work. And then you jumped straight into bootstrapping. So what kind of strategies helped you with that big transition?
At least I have I feel like I have a pretty good safety net. I think I was I was at Google long enough that I was pretty comfortable and frankly kind of bored. So I was looking for that. I was looking for some excitement and some challenge. Definitely found it. But I never felt like, I mean, obviously there's anxiety and things that are difficult and things you worry about, but I never felt like I thought about what is the cost of failure, I suppose, and be reasonable with myself about what happens if it doesn't work out, you know. And I'm a tech professional in the Bay Area. Like, I'll just get another job, you know. It's like they're not going to be the end of the world if I can't succeed through one of these efforts.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we kind of tell ourselves about the risk, and there is some risk in not working. But again, you all were working at Google, and you have some safety net in the sense of like you are highly employable, you know. So if things don't work out, you can always find a job easily. Thanks, Mukhil.
I have one more quick question, if you don't mind. When you did start bootstrapping, did you give yourselves like a dollar amount that this is how much dollar we are going to spend, or like a time commitment we are going to spend like 1 year and see if this works out or not? And eventually, did you stick with it?
I think each one of us has maybe slightly different, like slightly modified answer. But I would say for me, like, yeah, we definitely had a time, like the time was like 12 months of like, yeah, I can go without income for 12 months. After that, I need to go and find a job. And so I have very specified time. And I did not strictly commit to, like, I would not strictly follow that because we were not making enough money for me not to find a job after 12 months. But I would say that there was definitely indication that we're getting there after 12 months. So that made me comfortable continuing longer. Yeah, that was at least for me.
Yeah, the agreement that I had with my wife was like, if in a year I'm still sitting here not doing anything, then I will definitely go get another job. But after a year, I was really busy and there's a lot of things going on, and couldn't imagine doing anything else. So I'd say that hasn't changed. Still can't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caleb.
Right.
All right.
Forward to seeing you all next time.
Yeah, thank you for staying and listening to our stories. Like, if you have any questions, like definitely DM us. We're both on the Xoogler network Slack, and you can find us on LinkedIn.
We want to
Thanks so
help.
much.
We're very interested to see other people trying things and being, you know, making things happen. So that's what's exciting for us. So if we can help you out somehow, please.
Yeah, we're rooting for all your businesses. So thank you.
This is very helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.
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 Cool. Thank you, guys.